Hi everyone, my name is Ranjan and I'm Partner Success Manager with Gordon Farnatlia. Before we start with the webinar, I want to remind you about the question and answer section on the Zoom meeting page. Please use this section to ask your questions, and I will try to answer them at the end of the webinar. Today's topic of the webinar is fuel monitoring from OBD devices. So here's the agenda for today. Display of fuel information on Wialon, fuel filling and fuel theft events, fuel records in reports, Blue Arrow Fuel Card app. Display of fuel information in Wialon. Now let me show you how fuel information is displayed in Wialon. Fuel information is visible at work list and on tooltip on the monitoring page. You can see there are two fuel sensors displayed here because some vehicles report fuel in percentages while others report fuel level in gallons or liters. In case your vehicle report fuel in percentage, you need to create additional fuel level sensor and convert fuel percentage into gallons or liters by applying a formula. This is because fuel reports in Wialon work with fuel level sensor. Let me explain you how you can do that. We will go to the unit properties page by clicking on the range key. On the sensors section of the unit properties page, you can see the fuel sensors. First sensor that you see here is custom sensor, which reports fuel information in percentage because this vehicle reports fuel in percentage. So the second sensor that we have created here is to convert fuel percentage into gallons. So this is how we created the first sensor, where we can mention any name. This could be fuel level in percentage, or any name that you want to provide to this sensor. You choose custom sensor in the with the sensor type because your vehicle is reporting in percentage, and then you will choose the measurement system. Here we choose US, and then the metric is percentage that we will mention here. That will display on the monitoring page. And then the parameter is fuel because fuel is the parameter is reporting the fuel information for this vehicle. We can also select intervals to apply colors to the fuel sensor based on percentage of the fuel tank of the vehicle. Then here is the second sensor that we have created, which is fuel in gallons or liters. You can name it the way you want. Sensor type, you will select fuel level sensor. Measurement is US. Metric is in gallons. And then here in the parameter, you will apply the formula along with the fuel parameter that is reporting fuel information. So const 100 multiplied by const, which is the fuel tank capacity. So for this vehicle, the fuel tank capacity is 13.2. You can mention the tank capacity basis the vehicle that you're working with. Now let's talk about fuel filling and fuel theft events. Fuel filling and fuel theft events are displayed on the tracks panel. Select fuel theft and fuel filling markers. Click show track, which is historical data of a unit. You can see fuel theft are marked red in red color icon, whereas fuel fillings are marked in green color icon. To get fuel filling and fuel theft reported, you need to make changes in the fuel consumption settings in unit properties. Now we'll again go back to the unit properties page by clicking on the range key against the unit name. Here I have highlighted the minimum fuel consumption settings required for your vehicle. First, review minimum fuel filling volume and fuel theft volume, which is like, it depends on the vehicle tank. So in case your vehicle tank is bigger, the fuel filling volume would be higher and fuel theft volume would also be a little higher. So you can make those changes as per your vehicle. And then make sure you enable fuel level sensor and leave all the settings as default. Now we'll talk about fuel records in reports. So here is one report that I have run for fuel. It has multiple tables. So one of the table is trips, and in the trips report you can see fuel consumption during the trip, which is mentioned here, and then the average fuel consumption. You can also see initial and final fuel levels. The second table is about engine hours. So this gives you information about how much fuel is consumed during the engine was running. So here you can see average fuel consumption, fuel consumed during the engine hours, initial and final fuel levels. Then the next report is about fuel fillings. So it gives you information of wherever the fuel filling happened. So the location, time, date, initial and final level, and the total volume of fuel filled. The next report is about fuel thefts. So here you can see those suspected fuel thefts reported. So initial fuel level and the total volume which is suspected to be stolen. You can also see fuel filling and fuel theft chart here. Now, fuel info in Wialon. So let me move to our platform and show you fuel information in Wialon. So this is one of the units where you can see fuel information in percentage as well as gallons. You can click on the range key and we can review the fuel sensors that we have created for this vehicle. So we'll go to the fuel sensors. One of the fuel sensors is reporting in percentage, and we'll show you. So this is the fuel name that we have captured. We have applied a custom sensor type as fuel sensor, and then chosen the measurement system. Percentage is the metric it's reporting, and then the fuel sensor parameter that we have chosen out of all the parameters where the fuel is being reported. Second sensor that we have created was about converting fuel into gallons from fuel percentage. So here we created fuel in gallon sensor. We chose fuel level sensor, and then we applied a formula against the parameter. So we can see here fuel in percentage and gallons are reported here. Now we go to tracks and we'll run a report. We'll run the track for fuel filling volume, fuel filling and fuel theft volumes. So we'll click on this track. Let me click it. Let me do it for a week and see. Here you can see a fuel filling event is reported. If we do it for a longer period, we can see fuel fillings as well as fuel thefts. So here you can see some fuel filling are reported. And then if you make changes in the fuel consumption settings, you may see those changes on the fuel theft and fuel filling records. So again, so you can see there are multiple fuel fillings reported along the route. Now we'll move to the reports and show you how that fuel report looks like. I'll again run the fuel report for this particular vehicle. And here you can see the trips table. It shows the beginning and initial and final location. and then it shows you the amount of fuel consumed, average fuel consumed, and initial and final level of the fuel. And the engine hours table, we can see the beginning, initial, and final locations. Then we can see consumption by fuel level sensor, average fuel consumption, initial and final level of the fuel. Here you can see fuel fillings. So all the fuel fillings that happened during this time. So on the date and location of the fuel filling, and total volume of the fuel that you can see. So now we are moving to the chart. This chart has fuel filling and fuel thefts. So fuel fillings are reported here, and similarly, fuel theft, if any, is reported. That is also shown in the chart. Let me see. I'll run the current. Okay, so let me move back to the presentation. So now I want to remind you about the telematics partner conference that we are organizing on October 21st at DoubleTree Hilton at Los Angeles. It is organized a day before the Mobile World Congress 2019, which is during October 22 to 24th in Los Angeles. You can register on my.gotum.com to confirm your participation for the event. Now I'd like to pass on the presentation role to our partner, Blue Arrow Telematics. I'd like to introduce you to Tucker Peebles, who is our partner in US. He will talk about the fuel card application, which compares data from Wialon and fuel cards to report discrepancies while fuel filling.
All right, hey guys, how's it going? Let me try sharing my screen really quick. Okay, can you guys see? Wait a second. Do you guys see the questions screen? Oh, it's sharing the wrong screen. That's why. Okay. Ranjan, can you tell me what you're seeing right now? Do you see the Blue Arrow fuel login page?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so thanks for joining this webinar today, guys. I'm really excited to share with you guys an app that we've been working on for a while. This app is a fuel card integration that we really think is going to benefit your customers by allowing them to monitor fuel card use and detect when their employees are misusing the company fuel cards. So the way this app works, basically we take the fuel transaction data that we get from your fuel card provider, and we get that nightly, and we process that data into our database and then compare it with the data that we get from Wialon, the GPS data, and we use that data to detect two different types of misuse of the fuel card. The first is going to be a location mismatch, which basically means the vehicle was not at the gas station at the time the fuel card was used. Obviously, that means that this is a misuse of the fuel card. And the second is we check the fuel level, and oh yeah, sorry guys, and so the second is a fuel level mismatch, and we detect the fuel level with the stuff that Ranjan was just showing you at the time of the transaction. And if the same amount of fuel that was purchased wasn't put into the vehicle, then we know that even though the vehicle was there might have been another vehicle that pulled up. Let's say, the employee calls up his brother or his wife or something like that to meet him at the gas station since he knows he's being tracked, and swipe the fuel card but put the fuel in the other vehicle. So once we detect one of those things happening, what's going to happen is you're going to get an email alert. And the email is going to look something like this. It's just going to be a quick summary of the bad transactions for the night. So here you can see there was a couple where the vehicle isn't reporting data, or the fuel level mismatch, location mismatch. And when you get one of these emails, what we would recommend doing is just going through Wialon. It's going to be up here in your apps section. and you would click the blue arrow fuel icon. And when you do that, it'll open up this login window. And we're about to have to where you'll be able to skip this login screen and just be taken directly to the app. So when you log in, the first thing you're going to see is your dashboard. And this is basically going to be an overview of all the information that we feel is relevant for the most part. This first section you see here is the bad transactions section. In this section, you'll be able to see all of the bad transactions over a set period of time. I've set this up to be the last year just for demo purposes. We would probably recommend the last 2 weeks. And you'll see 3 different types of fuel transactions. You can see on this legend here, the location mismatch and fuel level mismatch that I mentioned earlier. And then also this yellow is more of a warning, but this just means the device wasn't reporting any data to Wialon at the time of the transaction. So that could mean the device became unplugged or something else like that. But it's still worth looking into, but it's not necessarily a misuse of the fuel card. So once you see these transactions, if you want to get more details, you can come over here and click on the map icon. You can see this was a location mismatch, and the vehicle was all the way over here, but the gas station was over here. So at the time of the transaction, obviously the vehicle was not at the gas station, so you know it was a bad transaction. But one of the things that we had actually noticed while building this app is that sometimes we use the Google Maps API to determine the location of the gas station. Sometimes Google Maps doesn't have the right location for these gas stations. So for instance, if I scroll down to this transaction, you can see that this vehicle was at the Sheets 505 right here at the time of the transaction, but for whatever reason, Google has the location of the gas station here. One of the things that's going to be really convenient for your customers is the ability to go and correct this gas station location. So they aren't going to be, flooded with false positives and have to weed through those, which is going to really increase the usefulness of the app. So all you have to do is just click, it'll change the location, you click save. And you saw that was on the 17th. Once it reprocesses this data, that transaction will disappear so that you won't have any of that bad data. I actually think it will stay around. Yeah, it's going to stay around because it was also a fuel level mismatch. You can see the fuel difference here, but it's no longer a bad transaction based on location. Another section we have on this dashboard is the worst offenders list. And this is going to be your way to, at a glance, see which one of your employees really have a major problem with misusing the fuel card. It's based on a threshold, so maybe you don't care necessarily if there's been one bad transaction, so you could change it and say, I really care about if they've had 3 or more bad transactions over the last year or so. And you'll be able to get this list and immediately tell which employees have a habit of misusing the fuel card more than just maybe a one-off time, or maybe they had an asset in the back of the trailer that you weren't tracking the fuel level on. So this will let you tell right away which employees you should really call into your office and probably have a conversation with. If you want to change the date range, you can do that on this calendar icon by clicking through that. If you want to change the settings on which alert types show up on your dashboard, you can toggle these on and off, change the default period that loads on the page load, and change your thresholds. So if you only, let's say you're out in a rural area and maybe 0.15 miles isn't enough, maybe you have a little bit more GPS load than that, you could change it to half a mile or something like that. Whatever suits your company's needs. And so now I'm just going to take you through the setup really quickly. The last part, it's really straightforward and really simple. What you would do is you would come in here and add all the fuel cards from your fleet. And you're going to get a list of your vehicles in Wialon. So let's say we should want to do it for, I've already got Tucker Honda, we'll do, I don't think I have Blake in here yet. So you choose a vehicle that you haven't associated a card with, you put a unique card ID in, and then put the name on the card. This is what would just be printed on the card. You click submit, and so you see we get an error here. This has to be unique because when we process the file nightly, it's going to use this card ID to determine which card which vehicle we should check against the location. So all you would have to do here is come in here and edit this. I already had a test user in here from before, which is why that showed up. But that's actually a good example of what we use this information for. Depending on your workflow, some companies, this is unique, but some companies, they leave the cards in the vehicles. So the name on the card might be the name of the vehicle, and that's what's actually unique, and every driver has their own PIN. If that's the case, this app will still work for you. You can come in here and switch it to the name on card being the unique card ID field, and that's what we'll check against when we process the data. Other than that, I think that's a pretty good summary of everything. If you guys have any questions, I would be happy to answer them now. I've got to bring back up. I know there's a spot for questions in Zoom. Give me 1 second. Okay, I see Karen asked, is it just WEX? Right now it is just WEX, but we were really close to having Comdata, and we expect Fuelman and FleetCor right behind that. Oh yeah, and yeah, I see that was the same question that Chrissy asked. So we're gonna have FleetCor, Fuelman, and Comdata hopefully really soon. We've just had to pass some PCI compliance with that, but we've gotten all that taken care of. We're hoping within the next couple of weeks that'll all be set to go. And then one thing I forgot to mention is we also offer white labeling. If you want to white label this and offer it as part of your suite of products in Wialon, that's also something that we would do for you. White labeling would involve your logo, your color scheme. Also, the emails would come from your email address, custom domain name, all that stuff. So, you know, the full white labeling package. Let's see. So if you are in Mexico, we can still support this. We currently are supporting English with gallons and US dollars, but we plan on localizing, especially to the other major languages, but to any language where there is a big enough opportunity, we would consider localizing the app to be, you know, available for that. The one thing that we would need is information about the fuel card providers that most of the companies in Mexico would use. For instance, WEX and Comdata and FleetCor are really big here. But if there was different fuel card providers in Mexico that we would need to support, we would just need that information, and we would get in contact with those fuel card providers and get that process started. For pricing, I think what we want to do is have you get in touch with your GERDM partner representatives to talk about pricing, since we have so many different countries represented here. It's going to be different, obviously, per country. So for that, just get in touch with your GERDM representative that you're working with, and they can help you with the pricing for that. Some of these questions are in Spanish. So will the solution work with Wialon Local? That is a good question. I'm gonna have to look into that. If Wialon Local hooks into the Wialon API, then it should work. Maybe Liana or Ranjan would have the answer for that question, but all we do is use the Wialon API to the remote API to pull the data. So as long as we have access to the data, then it would definitely work. Karen asked, are there specific devices we need to use for this? So obviously every device is different. We've used a few different devices in testing. The one major thing we've noticed is that some devices aren't quite as accurate on the fuel level reporting just from an OBD device. So if you have an OBD device that isn't reporting the most accurate fuel levels, that have pretty big fuel level fluctuations, then it could throw off your fuel level mismatch errors. And for that, you could just increase the threshold if you wanted to. But we also would recommend, if you really care about that, and if it's really important, to install an external fuel level sensor and use that fuel level sensor data instead of the OBD device data. But the app will work with any device currently. Let's see, what kinds of reports are available through this app? So currently there's no reports available through the app, but we are going to have reports coming. The first is going to be an IFTA report that includes fuel data on the IFTA report. So not just the amount of distance driven in each state, the amount of fuel purchased and used in each state. And then another report, we are going to have it available to where you can download the bad transactions as a report in case you wanted to email that out to, say one of your customers has different divisions, so they want to email just certain reports to different divisions where they can see that data. We're going to have that downloadable to Excel too. That'll be coming really soon. Which device do we recommend for the most accurate reporting? I think that's just something you're going to have to mess around with. We've seen pretty good reporting on some of the stereo devices. So we've used top flight devices. We've used a bunch of different kinds of devices to test. And I think it fluctuates. Also, some vehicles don't report the fuel level to the OBD device. If the vehicle doesn't report the fuel there, then obviously we can't associate a fuel level with those. So those vehicles wouldn't be able to work with that type of sensor, or with that type of mismatch, but they would still work with the location mismatch. Let's see. And when you enter the register fuel, can you clarify that question, Ahmed? I'm not sure exactly what you're asking there. So, Joe, I think there's probably a list. I know there's a list on GERDM that shows which parameters on the GERDM website that shows which parameters come through each OBD device. I don't actually know off the top of my head, but I do know that all of the ones we've tested with have reported the fuel data. So I would guess it's a lot of OBD devices, maybe the majority of them, but I don't actually have an answer for that question for specific.
Hi, Joe. I would like to answer this. I'd like to recommend you to review the page, device page on our website, and you can see all those devices which are reporting fuel information. So you can, before even deciding on any device, you can just check on the specifications on the parameter list that is on our website, and decide whether to go for that device.
All right, let's see. What are the best devices for OBD tracker? That one's probably maybe better for Ranjan to answer. Again, I feel like each one has different uses. One of the great things about Wialon is they support so many devices.
So I'd like to answer this. The best devices for OBD trackers, I mean, this is based on a lot of factors. It depends on what kind of support that you get from the manufacturer who's selling those devices. So it depends on the region to region. I would recommend you to reach out to your partner success manager in your region, and he can then definitely refer you to some of those devices which they recommend in their region. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions?
Okay, so I think we are over our time for the webinar, so we'll be closing the webinar. If you have any more questions, you can please reach out to your partner success managers and they can answer some of your questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks for coming, guys.